In the midst of a world shrouded in darkness and gloom, perched upon a rugged mountain, 6 individuals gathered around a flickering campfire. An air of anxiety loomed over some, while others exhibited unwavering determination. Amidst the group, a man garbed in heavy armor sat upon a flat stone, meticulously polishing his sword. His helmet had been removed, revealing a rugged face that had not seen a razor for the better part of a month. His eyes were clear and blue, with a hint of innocence behind them, a stark contrast to the domineering heavy armor he was wearing. Feeling the tense atmosphere, he spoke up, trying to lighten the mood. "Helen, what did you want to be when you grew up?" However, his question was met with a frosty gaze from a female ice mage who sternly admonished him, reminding him that this was no time for such discussions. Archer, always the mediator, grinned mischievously at the ice mage. "Come on, Ice Queen. Jace has got a point. We could use a good laugh before facing whatever's out there." The ice mage glared back, her icy demeanor undeterred. "First of all, it's none of your business. And secondly, this is a dangerous mission. We cannot afford to be distracted." Jace, undeterred by the pretty woman's words, persisted with a smile. "Oh, come on. I'm sure it was something cool like wanting to be a model or even an idol." Helen rolled her eyes and turned her back to the fire, choosing to ignore the 2 men. "I guess I'll start," Jace said with a smile. Looking into the fire, his face turned a little serious. I always wanted to be a chef, working my way up in the kitchen until I could own a Michelin star restaurant." A silence swept over the mountain after these words were said, causing Jace to look up from the fire and investigate. He gazed at the faces of his battle party that had sweat and bled together over the years with a questioning look. After a few moments of silence, the team burst into uproarious laughter, sending echoes throughout the mountainous range around them. Even Helen, who had been attempting to ignore the chatter, was holding her sides and giggling. Jace blinked a few times before his face turned red in embarrassment. "What's so funny?" he growled. A blond man finally managed to compose himself, flipping the flowing hair out of his face before saying, "Jace, the last time you cooked for us, you almost burnt down our entire campsite. We had to find another beast to butcher, otherwise we would have gone hungry." The cohort burst into laughter once more, remembering the bumbling Jace in front of the charred remains of their dinner. Jace sulked, puffing his cheeks at the reaction of his supposed teammates. "Well, excuse me for not being a master chef like I had hoped." The laughter subsided, and their leader, a towering figure armed with an enormous sword and shield, rose to his feet. He gestured for everyone to take their positions, their faces transforming into stern masks of battle-hardened warriors. Jace, being part of the vanguard, took his place at the front, but inwardly, he cursed himself for agreeing to this perilous expedition into the treacherous mountains. The mission was merely a scouting one, but doubt gnawed at his heart. Suddenly, the cohort's attention shifted as they caught sight of a figure on the horizon. Eyes widened in wonder as the object gradually approached. After a moment of anticipation, they saw a pointed object slowly coming into view. As it got closer, the cohort realized it was a sharp horn. Coming into view was a colossal draconic beast, its scales gleaming with an otherworldly luminescence, a sight both awe-inspiring and unsettling. The comical laughter that had resonated moments ago turned into hushed whispers, the lightness of the moment swallowed by a wave of trepidation. The air crackled with tension as the beast's presence became palpable. Jace's instincts kicked in, his voice cutting through the uncertainty. "Be on guard, everyone! This is no ordinary creature! Prepare for battle!" As if in response to Jace's warning, the beast let out a thunderous roar, shaking the very foundation of the mountain. Its fiery eyes locked onto the cohort, radiating an aura of ferocity and power. Jason saw a blood-red name hovering over the colossal draconic beast's head, making him pale deeply. No one had ever fought a beast with a red name and lived to tell the tale. He looked over at his friends and swallowed deeply. From the looks on their faces, they had also seen the boss's name and knew that there was no escape. In an instant, the beast lunged forward, claws slashing through the air with a blinding swiftness. Jace's words were swallowed by the chaos as his comrades sprang into action, their weapons clashing against the beast's scales in a desperate bid for survival. The clash between the cohort and the colossal draconic beast grew increasingly desperate. Despite their battle-hardened skills and unwavering resolve, their efforts seemed feeble against the overwhelming might of the creature. The beast's scales proved impervious to their weapons, and its ferocious strength surpassed anything they had encountered before. One by one his comrades fell, their valiant struggles extinguished like flickering candles in the wind. Jace's heart sank with each loss, his own resolve wavering as he witnessed the futility of their fight. Yet, he refused to surrender. He would stand his ground until the bitter end, even if it meant facing the crushing weight of despair. The beast moved with unearthly speed, its claws tearing through the air like razor-sharp scythes. Jace dodged and parried, his movements fueled by a mixture of desperation and determination. But with each passing moment, the odds stacked against him. The beast's ferocity was unmatched, its attacks precise and deadly. In a terrifying display of power, the creature let out a deafening roar that shook the very mountainside. The ground quaked beneath Jace's feet as he desperately tried to hold his ground. But as the battle unfolded, his fate seemed sealed. The beast's movements became a blur, an unstoppable force of destruction. Jace's vision blurred with exhaustion and despair. Through the haze, he caught a glimpse of the beast's massive foot descending upon him. In that fleeting moment, he knew his end had come. He closed his eyes, bracing himself for the inevitable impact. A deafening crack filled the air, followed by a bone-chilling silence. Jace's consciousness faded as the world turned to darkness. Jace's eyes shot open, his body jolting upright in bed. His chest heaved with each rapid breath as he clutched at his pounding heart. Sweat trickled down his forehead, mingling with the remnants of a terror that gripped him. The last moment of the harrowing fight against the colossal draconic beast still lingered in his mind. As he glanced around the room, panic and confusion washed over him. The familiar surroundings registered in his mind. His old room from a decade ago, frozen in time. The posters of heroes and fantasy landscapes adorned the walls, triggering a wave of nostalgia. The reality of the situation crashed down upon him. How could this be? He vividly remembered the battle, the devastating defeat, and his imminent demise beneath the weight of the creature's foot. Yet, here he was, back in the past, seemingly unscathed. His friends and allies, brutally disemboweled and defeated by the boss monster in the mountainous region. He quickly lifted up his shirt, searching for the massive scar that he had received early on, only to see his stomach without a blemish. The sudden vibration of his phone jolted him from his bewildered state. Instinctively, he reached for the device, unlocking it to reveal a news article. The words on the screen sent shivers down his spine. The new virtual reality game was being released in just an hour. Jace's mind whirled with confusion and disbelief. Trembling fingers hastily checked the date, his eyes widening as he read the glaring numbers. The 1st of July, 2050. A gasp escaped his lips, reverberating through the empty room. It was a revelation that struck shock into the depths of his soul. He had truly traveled back in time, a decade into the past. Jace sat on his bed, his mind consumed by the weight of his current predicament. The knowledge of the impending apocalypse, set to ravage the world in a mere 3 months, weighed heavily on his shoulders. His gaze settled on his phone, its screen displaying the name that had triggered this apocalyptic chain of events. Cataclysm, world's end, he muttered, his teeth clenched in frustration. The mere sight of those words sent a chill down his spine, dredging up memories he would rather forget. In the future, he knew that the game's world would merge with Earth, plunging the modern civilization into a maelstrom of chaos and despair. It would be a literal apocalypse. The first 2 years were the darkest for humanity. The merging of the game world with reality unleashed a catastrophic electromagnetic pulse, obliterating all technology known to mankind. In a single stroke, the modern world was hurled back into the abyss of the Dark Ages. Yet, that was not the cruelest blow of all. The true horror manifested in the form of monstrous creatures, unleashed upon the earth in countless hordes, thirsty for blood and destruction. The wave of death and devastation that swept the land was unimaginable. There was something strange that occurred during the merging of the two worlds, the introduction of the system. Those familiar with Cataclysm would recognize its striking resemblance to the user interface of the game. Every living human, regardless of age or gender, received the same enigmatic message: choose your class. Numerous options awaited, from combat-oriented classes like mage, ranger, monk, guardian, and swordsman, to non-combat roles such as blacksmith and alchemist. Jace had been a swordsman, risking his life on the front lines against the abominations that invaded their world. Humanity, over time, managed to establish strongholds across the land, providing a semblance of safety. With governments fallen, the strongest players formed guilds, offering refuge to non-combatant classes while utilizing their skills and talents to bolster their fighting forces. The guild Jace had joined was called Avalanche, a mid-sized guild on the Asian continent. Its leader's true name was unknown, but he went by the alias Cloud, wielding a colossal greatsword that spanned the length of his towering frame. It was within this guild that Jace had found his comrades, battling alongside them in countless encounters, gradually evolving into a formidable battle party. Their latest mission had been to scout the fearsome boss residing in the Western Mountains and report back to the guild, enabling a full raid party to confront it. Little did they know it would mark their final mission together. Jace's grip tightened around his phone, a whirlwind of emotions raging within him. If he had truly traveled back 10 years into the past, then all hope was not lost. He still had time to prepare for the impending catastrophe, armed with his knowledge of future events and honed combat experience. "Let's do this," he declared, mustering the courage that burned within. Leaping off the bed, he strode toward his VR machine, ready to embark on a journey that would alter the course of his fate. Jace stood before his VR gaming pod, his heart heavy with a profound sigh. The virtual world had once been his sanctuary, a realm where he could escape the burdens and hardships of reality. With no family left to rely on, he subsisted on his late father's life insurance, channeling the funds toward his education, hoping to forge a path for himself. The weight of loneliness and the pressures of life often threatened to engulf him, plunging him into the depths of despair, tempting him to join his departed loved ones in the realm beyond. And then he heard of VR, the newest sensation sweeping across the world. Rubik's Corporation had unveiled the groundbreaking full-dive technology, a marvel that transported players' consciousness into an alternate realm. It promised an immersive experience, engaging all 5 senses. The allure of exploring a different world, an escape from his own desolate reality, proved too irresistible for Jace to resist. As he gazed upon the pod before him, a maelstrom of emotions swirled within him: fear, apprehension, yearning, and a resolute determination. Slowly he managed to steady his trembling breaths, mustering the courage needed to step forward and lower his body into the sleek, encompassing chamber. In the stillness of that pivotal moment, Jace contemplated his next moves. He had a mere 3 months until the game would manifest in the real world, offering him just one chance to navigate the treacherous path that lay ahead. "Here goes nothing," he whispered, his voice filled with a blend of anticipation and uncertainty. With steady hands, he reached out and grasped the VR headset, flipping the switch to power it on. Jace's eyes fluttered open, only to be greeted by an expanse of impenetrable darkness. Above him, distant stars flickered, casting their feeble light upon the void. A monotone voice, one he immediately recognized as the system's, filled the air, its words reverberating through his consciousness. "Initializing startup. Scanning body parameters. Please stand by." As if responding to the system's command, a gentle warmth washed over Jace, starting from his toes and gradually enveloping his entire being. It was the sensation of his body being meticulously scanned by the pod, every detail recorded with precision. After a few moments, a figure materialized before him, a projection of a person. The figure possessed spiky, short black hair, its eyebrows resembling twin swords, and clear blue eyes that shone with a glimmer of life. The projection mirrored Jace's appearance, but it was unmistakably a younger version of himself, a reflection from a decade past. Gazing at the youthful projection before him, Jace felt a wave of emotions surge within his chest. It was a mixture of astonishment, recognition, and a tinge of nostalgia. He had traveled back in time, finding himself face to face with the person he once was, a mere shadow of the experiences that awaited him. The projection stared back at him, devoid of animation or vitality, a hollow reflection of his former self. Jace's lips curled into a wistful smile as he marveled at the innocence and naivety that emanated from his younger visage. It was a reminder of the untainted dreams and aspirations he had carried in his heart before the world had changed. Scanning complete. Choose your class. A familiar list suddenly appeared in front of Jace, detailing a list of classes. Swordsmen, masters of melee combat, wielding blades with precision and skill. Their swift strikes and impeccable technique make them formidable opponents on the battlefield. Mage, harnessers of arcane energies, capable of unleashing devastating spells upon their foes. Mages command the elements, manipulating fire, ice, lightning, and more to shape the outcome of battles. Archer, experts in long-range warfare, armed with bows and an uncanny accuracy. Archers strike from a distance, delivering lethal arrows with deadly precision. Guardian, towering defenders of justice, dedicated to shielding their comrades from harm. With immense strength and fortified armor, Guardians stand as unyielding walls against the forces of darkness. Monk, practitioners of martial arts, combining physical prowess and spiritual enlightenment. Monks possess unparalleled agility and unleash powerful strikes imbued with their inner energy. Ranger, masters of wilderness and stealth, attuned to the secrets of nature. Rangers are skilled trackers and marksmen, blending seamlessly with their surroundings while unleashing swift and deadly attacks. Blacksmith, masters of metallurgy and craftsmanship, shaping weapons and armor with unmatched skill. Blacksmiths forge powerful equipment, enhancing the strength of their allies and themselves. Alchemist, proficient in the art of potions and concoctions, manipulating ingredients to create potent elixirs. Alchemists possess healing abilities and can brew potions that bolster their allies or unleash devastating effects on their enemies. Druid, guardians of the natural world attuned to the spirits of flora and fauna. Druids command nature's forces, summoning animals, manipulating plants, and wielding the power of life and renewal. Jace looked at the list of main classes that were in front of him. However, he didn't need to think for long. Without any fanfare, he chose the class that he was most familiar with. You have chosen swordsman. Are you sure you wish to enter Cataclysm as a swordsman? Acknowledging his choice, he was met with another prompt. Please enter a name for your character. He was never good with names, so without any thought, he just said his own. Jace. Alias taken. Shit. He responded with annoyance. Alias taken. No, wait, what? Alias taken. Jace massaged his temples, feeling a headache coming on. When he had first created a character, he ended up with the name Jace with a Y, causing him no shortage of embarrassment. His eyes flickered for a moment before a smile crept onto his face. Gordon Ramsay! Alias taken. Foo asterisk K! This time he shouted internally, so as not to hear the monotonous voice of the system once again. Composing himself once more, he eventually decided on a name. Let me cook. Name accepted. Entering Cataclysm, World's End. Jace's consciousness traversed through the digital realm, and when he opened his eyes, he found himself standing in the heart of the beginner village. It was a quaint settlement nestled within a picturesque valley, surrounded by verdant forests and majestic mountains that reached up to touch the sky. The air carried a crisp freshness, tinged with a hint of anticipation. The village exuded an aura of tranquility, yet it buzzed with activity. Players from all walks of life roamed the cobblestone streets, their names hovering above their heads in a luminescent white hue. The names served as a marker of their identity, allowing others to recognize them in this virtual world. Jace observed the diverse array of players, each adorned with distinctive armors, weapons, and attire, showcasing their chosen class and individual style. Amidst the crowd, Jace spotted fellow adventurers with names like Aegis Knight, Luna Mage, and Shadow Archer. They formed parties, exchanging strategies, sharing their excitement of starting the game. Some gathered around the town square, their weapons sheathed, engaging in friendly sparring matches to test out the game mechanics. NPCs, denoted by their names in a soothing green hue, mingled seamlessly with the players. They played various roles, from blacksmiths hammering away at anvils, tailors stitching elegant garments, to innkeepers welcoming weary travelers seeking respite from their quests. Their movements were meticulously programmed, yet their interactions felt surprisingly lifelike. The architecture of the village mirrored a fusion of medieval charm and fantastical design. Timber-framed buildings with thatched roofs stood alongside towering spires, adorned with intricate carvings and colorful banners that fluttered in the gentle breeze. The village square showcased a grand fountain at its center, its waters sparkling and dancing in the sunlight. It served as a meeting point for players to gather and share information or simply bask in the ambiance of the virtual world. Jace looked around, his eyes filled with wonder. It had been 10 years since he'd entered the world of Cataclysm through the VR set. He'd forgotten how beautiful and scenic it could be. However, the next moment his eyes turned cold, remembering the desolate and bloodthirsty world that the game had turned his own world into, awaking him from his reverie. "It will be different this time," he said with determination, his clear blue eyes conveying his resolution. One's level in the game had no effect on their abilities in the real world. This was a known fact throughout Jace's previous experience. However, there were rumors that a person could open up additional classes after reaching max level in the game. This is what Jace was aiming for. Although 3 months was not a long time, he believed it was possible to reach level 100 with the swordsman class before Cataclysm descended on Earth. After all, he had 10 years' experience with its skills and abilities. One of the reasons he was so confident was thanks to the special items listed in the game shop. Like most popular games, they sold tangible items within the game for real-life money, from XP modifiers to potions and even cosmetic items. Jace had mentally worked out how much he had available to spend while still being able to pay all of his bills for 3 months. After the fall of civilization, government-endorsed currency became useless. Therefore, it was nonsensical to save his money. Opening up the item shop in-game, Jace selected the EXP potion icon. "Will you purchase 2-hour XP potion X99? Yes. Will you purchase 2-hour XP potion X99? Eventually, Jace had spent an astronomical amount of money on EXP potions. Next to his name that was floating above his head, an icon that said VIP 15 shone gloriously. A few passerbys looked over at him and sneered, "Look at this whale! Buying things with Daddy's credit card, are we?" Jace looked over and blinked a few times. They were actually partly correct, considering he had used a majority of his dad's life insurance to purchase the EXP potions. However, that didn't mean he would accept the insult lying down. He gracefully lifted his left hand and produced the middle finger and said in an even tone, "Jog on." The group scowled and decided to ignore him, whispering insults as they walked away. Jace did not care. He had a mission to complete, and he was on a strict schedule. Equipping a few of the XP potions, he set off to go questing. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Jace's eyes fluttered open, and as he sat up in bed, a sense of anticipation coursed through his veins. This was the fated day, the day when the cataclysm would descend upon the world. He stretched his weary limbs, feeling the strain of the past 3 months of constant gaming and neglecting his physical well-being. The consequences of his intense dedication were evident in his appearance. His once wiry frame looked even more emaciated, his complexion pale and sallow. Neglecting proper nutrition and exercise had taken its toll, leaving his muscles weak and his body drained. But in his heart, he knew that his sacrifice had been necessary for his pursuit of power. As Jace rose from the bed, he made a mental note to reinstate his workout regime once the game descended upon the real world. It was time to rebuild his physical strength, to regain the vitality that had been sacrificed for his virtual ambitions. After all, he would have to fight with his body in this world. If he could barely hold his sword, he would be as good as dead. With renewed determination, Jace strode towards the familiar sight of his gaming pod. This would be his final entry into the world of Cataclysm, the last push to reach level 100 before the apocalypse brought about irreversible changes. Entering the pod, he closed his eyes and prepared himself for the immersion. The familiar hum of the technology enveloped him, and as he opened his eyes in the virtual world, he felt a surge of excitement. This was his moment, his chance to seize the power he sought. Honestly, he wasn't even sure that he would receive an additional class option if he reached level 100. But there was nothing he could do now, having put all of his eggs in this one basket. Jace's sword cleaved through the air, its sharp edge meeting the scaly hide of the giant lizard. The creature roared in fury, its massive body writhing in pain. With each strike, Jace's determination grew, his movements becoming more fluid and precise. Sweat dripped down his brow as he pressed on, his muscles screaming in protest. He knew that this battle was crucial, the final step before reaching max level. The lizard's ferocious attacks battered against his defenses, but Jace stood firm, refusing to yield. With one final decisive blow, Jace brought down the towering reptile, its lifeless body crashing to the ground. The air was thick with tension as he stood amidst the aftermath of the battle, his heart pounding in his chest. And then, a surge of power coursed through his being. The familiar notification flashed before his eyes, illuminating the virtual world. "Congratulations! You have reached level 100! The monotonous words echoed in his mind, a testament to his unwavering determination. But before the announcement could fully register, an unexpected disturbance shook the very fabric of the game. Jace felt a jolt, a disorienting sensation that tore him from the virtual reality. His eyes snapped open and he found himself back in his pod, surrounded by the cold, sterile walls. Confusion washed over him as he listened to the chaotic symphony of sounds outside. An explosion reverberated through the building, followed by the crackling of electrical surges. Fear gripped his heart as he realized that the merging of worlds had started. Acting on instinct, Jace swiftly unstrapped himself from the pod, his body protesting against the sudden movement after hours of inactivity. He stumbled out of the pod, his legs weak and unsteady. The next moment, an electromagnetic pulse assaulted the building, breaking all of his windows and throwing his frail body against the wall. The pod which he was just in began to crackle as the electricity surged within its components. It was completely fried, never to be used again. Jace waited a few moments, ready for the monotonous voice of the system to ring in his head once more. "Choose your class." Jace looked at the words floating in front of him, hoping and praying that reaching the max level as a swordsman would unlock a new and powerful class. "Come on, give me Master Swordsman or something powerful," he thought inwardly. His past 3 months of toil would be for nothing if there was not a new class option. "Class Chef has been chosen. Initializing system. Please stand by." Wait, what? I didn't even get a choice." He stared at the loading bar in front of him with a stupefied expression on his face, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. What the hell kind of class is Chef? In Cataclysm, there were subclasses that players could choose based on their preferences. If he remembered correctly, there was a subclass called Cook, which allowed players to prepare food which healed and gave temporary stat boosts to those who consumed them. His confusion turned to despair and his heart sunk. All that grinding, only to be relegated to a chef. Is this some kind of sick joke? How am I going to fight monsters as a chef? Suddenly he imagined himself garbed in a chef jacket and donning a tall white hat, stabbing ferocious monsters with a kitchen knife. Moments later, the loading bar had finished, prompting the system's voice to speak once more, its monotonous voice echoing inside of his mind. Initialization complete. Tiny sparks appeared around Jace, blinding him for a moment. However, he did not panic. He had experienced this phenomenon before. It was the starting equipment for his job class being equipped by the system. All humans received their starting gear after choosing their class. Jace's eyes widened in disbelief as he glanced down at his own body, now adorned with an unexpected attire. Instead of the battle-worn armor and weapons he had grown accustomed to, he found himself wearing something straight out of a busy restaurant's kitchen. The outfit consisted of a pristine white double-breasted chef's coat, adorned with intricate golden embroidery along the cuffs and collar. The fabric exuded an air of elegance, despite the chaotic circumstances that surrounded him. The coat was complemented by a pair of tailored black chef pants, their clean lines and sharp creases speaking of precision and attention to detail. On his feet, he wore polished black leather shoes, their laces neatly tied. Each step he took was accompanied by a soft squeak. as if the shoes themselves whispered of refinement and grace. Completing the ensemble was a traditional chef's hat perched atop Jace's head, its pristine white fabric towering proudly. The hat was adorned with a golden emblem shaped like a crossed knife and fork, symbolizing his culinary prowess. "What the fuck?"